Okay, so I've actually taught in this room before, so I'm kind of familiar with how these things go. Um, I guess first things first, welcome. Did you guys have class yesterday or today already? Yeah, so everybody's kind of back into it. Today's my first day teaching. I didn't teach yesterday, but I had one class early this morning. Um, so hopefully you're here for this class, Nature and Experience of Religion. My name is William McGrath, but you guys can call me Dr. Bill or Dr. McGrath or some variation on that. You can call me Professor too if you want. As I'm sure you know, titles kind of matter. I actually don't really care too much about them, but they matter in general. So it's a good habit to add them to things. Did you hear about the kind of kerfuffle over using doctor to talk about Joe Biden's wife, Jill Biden? Maybe you didn't hear about this. You can Google it if you're really curious. Somebody's like, "Are you really a doctor?" Because she has a PhD in education, and this person who he himself did not have a PhD was saying, "We can't call you a doctor. You're not really a doctor, but we are doctors. If you have a PhD, you are a doctor. You probably don't want me trying to resuscitate you if you pass out or anything, but we are doctors."
Sorry, I got lost.
Come in. Don't worry. We just got started. I'm talking about titles right now. So, yes, Nature and Experience of Religion. We meet Monday, Thursday. Today I don't have too much planned, so we won't use the entire session. We'll mostly just be going over like technology and expectations and all that sort of stuff. As you guys already know how to do, we got a social distance when we're in the room. We've also got people in the Zoom room over here. So, it's a little bit of a lot of things to juggle, but we've all done this before, right? I've done it before at least, so hopefully it won't be too bad. To get started, why don't I hit the lights? We can look at this image together, and you kind of get a sense of what we will do this semester. It's a little bright in this room, but hopefully you can see the image here. I'll encourage you to bring a device of some kind, even if you're attending in person. You don't have to do it right now. But if you have like even a phone, tablet, laptop, that kind of thing, I encourage you to bring it to class just because we have a lot of folks online and then you can talk to each other. You know what I mean? We're going to do like breakout rooms and that sort of thing. It'll also, I'll use slides every day. I post them to Moodle before class. So if you want to take notes, that's one way you could take notes without having to write every word down. I like that you guys have pen and paper because honestly, when I attend class, I actually remember things better when I write them down by hand. I don't know if that's what you find, but that's true for me. But that being said, in these hybrid classes, we got to use the technology to talk to each other. And of course, folks who are joining us remotely, feel free to use the chat. I'm going to write in the chat. Hi, everyone in the chat. And feel free to write whatever you want. And I'll check that periodically. I don't know if you can tell, but I've got it open up on the side of the screen. Mario says hi. Hisata, hello. Hello, everybody. Harrison, welcome. So yeah, please use the chat. Yeah, I love it. The chat's filled up now. Okay, I like this. It just takes a little momentum to get things going. And so yeah, if you ever have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. If you want to make a comment, I'm gonna ask like open questions, so you can feel free to unmute yourself and speak, right? I can't really see. I think there is a way to raise hands, but I find that kind of cumbersome. So feel free to just write it out, speak it out, and if we talk over each other, we'll just, figure it out. So yeah, don't be shy here. I encourage lots of talking, and of course that goes for all of us here. So let's start with this image. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. I can kind of zoom in on it. What is going on in this image here? What do you see here? What comes to mind? Anything immediately? There's a Buddha, yeah. So in the middle, right here. So how do you know it's a Buddha? The way that he's sitting. Yeah. How is he sitting? Kind of like he's meditating. Yeah, very good. So, those questions I'm asking might feel a little weird and uncomfortable, but it illustrates, right? When we all see this image, we might think, oh yeah, Buddha, right? I think probably most of us recognize Buddha. But what's your name? as Lauren was correctly answering my questions, there are specific things about the Buddha that we can use to identify him as a Buddha, right? And we saw another image of a Buddha. He also might have those same characteristics. So like the way he's crossing his legs. Again, you probably can't see it. Maybe the folks who are joining us at home, I'll zoom in real big. Here are his feet. Can you see that? These are his feet. So he's sitting with one foot on one side and one foot on the other side. Have you guys ever sat like this before? Do you know what it's called? The lotus position. So this would be a full lotus position. Kind of hurts. I don't know about you guys, but you can do it like in yoga class and sort of build up to it. I honestly probably couldn't really do this, not for long at least. If I started to do it, it would hurt real bad. I could do a half lotus, right? Which is like more like this. We've got one foot above the other. That's a little more comfortable for me. But honestly, even doing that, my feet start to fall asleep. Do you know this feeling? Where you sit cross-legged for too long and then you try to get up and you're like, oh, I can't walk. Just give me a second. I'm gonna, fall over if I don't take a second. So the Buddha's sitting cross-legged. He's also meditating, like we were discussing. His hands, maybe you can see, are sort of folded here. He seems to be holding something. It looks like a jar. If I had to guess, I'd say like a jar. And there are maybe some other things we could point out, but I think we could all agree, right? This is a Buddha. Very good, right? Most Buddhas sit this way. Maybe they have different hands in different positions. What about his head? Does anything about his head say Buddha to you? What's special about a Buddha's head versus maybe other heads we might see? He's got kind of an interesting haircut, right? What's special about his hair? Yeah, it's hard to notice his hands, right? He's got kind of the meditating hand position, something like this. It sort of looks like it, right? There's something going on right here. And actually, it looks like his hair is in a bun. In some Southeast Asian traditions, it's a little pointier. But really, across the board, almost all Buddhas have this bump on their head. And it's not just his hair. It's like a bump. And there's a special name for it. And it's not even clear to me what exactly this bump is supposed to mean. But in fact, if you look up they're called the marks and signs of a Buddha, you'll find a whole bunch of weird stuff. Buddhas technically have webbed fingers. Now, you wouldn't see that here because his hands are together, but in some statues of the Buddha, which we would go see if it weren't, the pandemic, but down at the Met, for example, I think the Met is open now. Did anybody go to the Met recently? Yeah, it is open, right? Yeah, so I encourage you to check it out. I'm not even going to do the extra. I usually do like an extra credit thing, or where we go together, we check it out together. But I think it's just too crazy, right? So I'm not going to do any of that sort of stuff. But if you ever do go to the Met and you happen to want to check out some Buddhists, look at their fingers, because sometimes there's a little webbing between the fingers, which is sort of crazy. And there are a whole bunch of other stuff on the palms, on the soles of the feet. Maybe I can just stop there. But yeah, this bump on the top of their head, it looks like just sort of a man bun kind of thing, but it's actually part of the head. Okay, very good. Maybe we can zoom out again. So as this exercise shows, we've been staring at the same picture for a good, 5 or 6 minutes. And there's still a lot more to talk about, right? We've only just talked about this guy in the middle. Maybe you have this sort of vague notion like, oh yeah, Buddha. But there are a lot of details, a lot of small, intricate ideas that might be a little bit hard to pick up on if we don't kind of just sit with an image like this, right? Think about it, talk about it. You might have a general idea of Buddhism, but even now we've been kind of refining it, right? Clarifying these ideas. And that's what we're going to do in this class. I specialize in Buddhism. You can probably guess, something like the nature and experience of religion. That's a pretty big topic, right? And so I'm going to focus on what I know best, because that is obviously what I can teach you best. But I will also reach at different times in the class to traditions I don't know as well. Because this is an introductory class, we can explore those together. But this is what I know extremely well. And so this is what we can go into more detail about. I teach classes on Buddhism here at Manhattan College. I used to live in China. I lived there for about 5 years. I speak Chinese, I speak Tibetan. And coming back to this picture, maybe I can just tell you this. There are different kinds of Buddhism, and this is a Tibetan Buddhist tradition. Can you see these images of the guys in the front? I know probably in the room you can't see them so well, but there are images here. These are Tibetan lamas. Have you heard the word lama before? Never? Not like the animal. Here, I'm going to mute John, but I'll spell it in the chat. So the animal, here, double L-A-M-A is the animal, right? But we're talking about L-A-M-A, lama. It's actually a Tibetan word. So it sounds a lot like the animal. Has anybody heard the word lama before? Dalai Lama? Who's the Dalai Lama? Is that you? Yeah, Dalai Lama, yeah. So who's the Dalai Lama? He's a wise old man. Yeah. Lives up in the mountains. That's a good start. Very good. Chat, if you guys got any info on the Dalai Lama, you got to help us out. Anybody else? Dalai Lama? He's like the Pope. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, we're in a Catholic school, right? So that's kind of a meaningful symbol here. He's like a Buddhist Pope in a way, right? So what does that mean for him to be like a Buddhist Pope?
I was gonna.
Oh.
I have another point to make.
Yeah, please.
There's a thing where like he reincarnates, and the other religious officials go into the neighboring towns and cities to find who he has reincarnated in his new life.
Very good. And your name is Aisata, right? Am I saying that right?
No, Aista.
Aista, even easier. Okay, Aista. So just like Aista said, reincarnation. Have you guys heard of reincarnation before? So this is one way the Dalai Lama is different from the Pope. So the Pope, there's a new Pope selected, I don't know, every few years, right? After one passes away. It's usually a pretty old person. You know, the current Pope was selected within my lifetime. I kind of remember there's a special smoke that gets sent out, the Vatican, you guys know what I'm talking about? You can learn about these things in your 200 level religious studies classes. But for the Dalai Lama, when he passes away, he's reincarnated. And so from birth, really not quite from birth, but from a very young age, just like Aista was saying, he is recognized at the age of 4, age of 5, and then he is kind of put on the throne and established as the Dalai Lama. So you can imagine, even as a young boy, people respect him, look up to him, and he becomes very well educated too, right? He's kind of groomed within this position for his entire life. And, you know, if you believe in reincarnation, that means he's carrying all of those positive characteristics across his many lifetimes. So the current Dalai Lama is the 14th, XIV. This is the 14th reincarnation. So that means he's been reborn 14 times and recognized as a reincarnation 14 times. So again, you know, there's this iconography of the Buddha, but then there's also the representations on earth, right? As we think about who this figure is and what does he mean to Buddhist people, as we've been discussing, he's an important religious figure. He's an important leader for Buddhists around the world, kind of like a pope. He's also a political figure. So for example, I think we've already said he's from the mountains, right? He's from Tibet. But Tibet's sort of a confusing place these days. Where is Tibet? Does anybody know where Tibet is? I'll spell it. T-I-B-E-T. Where's Tibet? Yeah, it's interesting. So I think, as I've said before, I speak Tibetan. I've spent a lot of my life thinking about Tibet. And in my lifetime, I've seen Tibet kind of fall out of the limelight, right? When I was a young man, I was born in the 80s. I grew up in the 90s. So like back in the 90s, there was like the Beastie Boys. You guys know who the Beastie Boys are? Of course, very good. So I believe it's MCA was pretty deep into the Tibetan cause, and he helped organize these Tibetan freedom concerts and got all these bands to come out to play at these Tibetan freedom concerts. It was a big deal. You can look it up. I think MCA was married to a Tibetan woman, which is part of that whole process. He passed away a few years ago, right? And so there's videos of Tibetan monks breakdancing to the Beastie Boys. Mario says Tibet's in Asia. That's true. Okay, so I just talked about Tibetan freedom, though. Why would Tibet need freedom? What's going on in Tibet? So Tibet is a part of China. If you ever looked at a map of China, it's very big, right? It's about the same size as the United States. About the western, let's say, a third of it, the southwestern 1/3 of it, is Tibet. It's this giant plateau, very high in the mountains, Himalayan mountains to the south, Mount Everest. You guys know Mount Everest? Yeah, so half of that is in Tibet, the other half is in Nepal. So as we think about where is Tibet, that's actually a very confusing question, right? Because it's part of China, it's part of India, it's part of Nepal, it's part of Bhutan. All of these areas all kind of link up with Tibet, but it's a very huge structure. We could look at a map, but I don't think we need to do that today. Maybe another time. So, okay, as we look at this religious space, we've already said a lot about it. It's Buddhist. There's a Buddha in the middle. It's Tibetan Buddhist, right? Because we got the Dalai Lama and his buddies in the front. Is there anything else we can say about it? Where do you think this is? I'll come out and say, I took this picture. But as I've told you, I've traveled throughout China. I've been to Tibet many times. Where do you think it is? A temple. That's a good assumption. Can we get more specific than that? Anybody in the chat, where do you think this is? Place of worship, all right? As you can tell, I'm gonna ask you questions in this class, and you're gonna give me fuzzy answers, and I'm gonna say, how can we get a little more specific, right? And again, this is it's a part of kind of thinking clearly, right? It's coming up with these sort of clear responses to these questions. All right, Mario says in the USA. Why do you say that, Mario? English exit sign, yes. And again, you guys might not be able to see it clearly, but here, there's an exit sign that is in English. So it's a little bit of a trick question. Yeah, so you guys picked up on my trick. English exit sign. Yeah, if it were in China, it would say tuko, right? It would say it in Chinese. It would say it in Chinese characters. So this is not in China. This is in America. And in fact, it's in New York. I took this picture in Brooklyn a couple years ago when I first came to town. I was kind of going around trying to see where the Buddhist places of worship are. And a friend of mine was visiting, and so he brought me here. It's a place called Dorjiling Buddhist Center. It's, I believe, in Vinegar Hill. It's just like right across the bridge. So, you know, these days, you can't really go places and do things, but it just goes to show this is a part of America too, right? It's not just some foreign distant thing. Like this is especially New York, where there's so much diversity and complexity. This is part of the American religious fabric as well. Okay, maybe that's enough of that. Now, here's another religious space. I guess just for the sake of conversation, can you identify this one? It looks like a church, right? Does anybody recognize this one? I'll let you keep thinking about it. So as you're thinking about it, now we're going to do a little activity. I'll turn the lights on. So again, the main task for today is to just kind of meet each other and get a little feel for how the class is going. We're not going to go over any like in-depth material. You know, this in a way is introducing my research, right? This is what I know about, this is what I specialize in, and you know, I'm here to share my knowledge with you. But now I'd like to hear more from you. Yeah, Max, I believe first name Max, right? So Max is saying Manhattan College Chapel. Yeah, this is just over there, otherwise known as the Smith Auditorium, right? Have you guys been in here before? It's a pretty amazing space. It's big, high ceilings, right? And again, with COVID, I don't know if there are going to be any events in there anytime soon, but if you're ever like looking around campus and don't know where to go, this is upstairs, so it's a little hard to get there, but you go into the Smith Auditorium, go up the stairs, and boom, there it is. Kind of a beautiful space. All right, so here's what I want to do. If you do have a device today, please bring it out, folks who are in class. If you don't have a device today, don't worry about it because I didn't warn you. And what I want you to do is to log into Zoom. So that you might have to like download something, which is a little annoying, but like I said, we're going to be using Zoom in class. So if you have the device that you plan to use throughout the semester, you might as well just download it now. And that way we can start practicing today. If you don't have a device, we can come up with a plan B. So don't worry if you don't have a device. For all of you who are playing along at home, I want you to start thinking about these three things. And what I'm going to do is again to use the technology and kind of get used to how this class is gonna run. We're gonna break out into groups, and you guys are gonna talk to each other. So it would be interesting to go around and make everybody tell me their names, but actually I already see all of your names here, so that might get a little boring after a while. But what I want you to do is I'm gonna pair you up with somebody using the breakout rooms feature. There's 7 people. No, here we go. A few folks are joining. There are 18 people in the chat right now. I'm gonna make 9 rooms, and so everybody will have a partner. It'll be, you know, one-on-one. Actually, I'll make it 8 because I think that's counting me. Is it counting me? I don't even know. Yeah, I think it's actually no. Now there are 19 people. That's right. So, so I'm going to make 9 rooms. You'll basically all be paired with one other person. What I want you to do is share this information with each other. Your name, your hometown, and then some kind of pop culture thing, movie, show, book, game, whatever, something you did over the break. Talk about it with your partner, and I'm going to ask you to share that information and introduce your partner after you're done. So please pay attention, write it down if you can't remember. And get to know somebody, right? Because again, I don't know about you guys, but it's been a long winter for me and probably for you too. I think we're all going a little crazy. And now is our chance to actually talk to people, if you remember how to do that. The meeting ID, let me get that up on the board. It's this number. Can you see that? Uh-huh.
I can't download things because some other part of my phone still can see it.
Okay. Well, we'll work it out.
Okay.
I'll come over and help you in a sec. All right, so I'm gonna break you all into groups. I'm gonna stop recording too, because this would be boring to watch. Those who are gonna watch this later. So I'm gonna have a YouTube channel, a YouTube playlist that you can go to and just watch all the videos from class. So if you ever miss a class, you want to review a class, you'll be able to do that. So that's attendance. Deadlines, I am a bit more of a hard ass about, not really, but a little bit, is just turn stuff in on time, right? I'm going to communicate with you about when things are due. Please turn them in when I ask you to. And if you can't, let me know why. I think I wrote, what, 24 hours in advance? Yeah, so if you can't, let me know and I'll probably give you an extension and I won't be too worried about it. But just talk to me, right? That's the kind of takeaway from this. If you can't come to class or you can't do your work, just talk to me and we'll work it out together. Participation is key, as we've already been doing today. Talk to each other, talk to me. This is probably the fuzziest part of your grade, where it's just like kind of a judgment call. Do you show up? Do you do the work? Are you paying attention? Do you understand the reading? If you don't, are you coming with questions? If you do, are you coming with comments, right? Or, you know, are you not? Are you just sort of checked out and not really paying attention? So I have a very strong sense for these things, and I will grade you on them. So please just come to class and talk to me and your classmates. Don't plagiarize. Most of what we are doing is just based on the readings I give you. I will never ask you to do a research paper. You don't have to ever consult a website for any of the assignments I give you, so don't even do it. Don't copy and paste from Wikipedia, because I will find out and I'll be sad again. Don't make me sad. Grades, participation, forum posts, we're gonna have a few of these. How many are we gonna do? 4 of them, yeah. So there are gonna be 4 of these posts. They're short, it's like 2 paragraphs. You know, it's basically just like a little bit longer than a tweet or something. There'll be exams and there'll be a final paper. So those are all of your grades. And then if you want to see how they kind of play out, here's the schedule. And I've copied that here on Moodle. So Moodle is just kind of a reflection of the syllabus. The syllabus has more like background information, but then the whole schedule is laid out here. Any questions so far? Any questions in chat or anybody? We're all doing okay? So that's the syllabus. Here's today, right? We did introductions. If you think, I would love to see those slides from today, you can download them here before class. There they are, right? So I upload them before class for you. So if you come to class and you want to take notes on the slides, you can do that. Highlight things, add notes to the slides, or however you want to do it. It's up to you. Next week, we will start reading. And so you see how it says Monday, right? That's our next class. There's a reading there. Smith, he's the author. Here's the reading, Smith. I click on that. Boom, what is scripture? So this is what I expect you to do, is before class, do the reading. So over the weekend, please read Smith. Come to class prepared to talk about it. This will probably be the hardest thing we read all semester. So I'm warning you now. Give yourself a couple hours, right? I assign it at the beginning because I know at the beginning your minds are fresh, your spirits are high, you haven't been crushed by all of the work that you have to do, right? And so I've given you a really challenging, but I would say very, provocative, fruitful, interesting even essay. So it's just one chapter from a book. As you can see, 20 pages. Shouldn't be that bad, but it's pretty hard. So again, give yourself some time to read it. After this, it'll get a lot easier. Maybe not a lot easier, but it'll get easier. And one reason I assigned this hard one at the beginning is because it kind of opens up the entire study of religion, right? Because again, what we're dealing with in this class is a big topic. What is religion and how should we think about it, right? He helps us answer that question. He's a little more specific. What is scripture? But scripture is a big part of religion, right? So that's where we're going to start. After that, Alachaim, Tevye the Dairyman. Has anybody seen Fiddler on the Roof? This is basically what Fiddler on the Roof is based on. So if you've seen Fiddler on the Roof, you know the story. And that is, it's a very different kind of reading. This one's very academic. This one is a story, right? It's almost like a novel, a short story. I think is probably a better term for it. And so we will kind of use this to think about that. And then I will give you a short writing assignment already by next week. I know it's very fast to do this, but again, spirits are high and we can kind of ride the wave. And then I will be one of the mean teachers that gives you an assignment before any of the other teachers do. And so you can go here and see what it's all about. Bottom line is it'll be based on what we do in class next week, what we discuss. And I'm going to ask you to interpret a love song. So you can start thinking about it over the weekend. I want you to take a love song, any love song, preferably one that you like, but it doesn't have to be, and interpret it as scripture. Now that's sort of a weird concept you've probably never thought about before. But hopefully reading this book will give you some things to think about. What happens when we treat a love song as scripture? Okay? And so we'll talk about that in class on Monday and then Thursday. And then the short writing assignment will be due Thursday night. Okay? So I would recommend not writing it before class. I would recommend writing it after class because we'll talk about it in class and then you'll have some ideas and then you can go down and write them down. So that's the plan for next week. It might sound like it'll be a busy week, and honestly, it will be. But the next week, there's no writing. The next week, there is a little writing. The next week, there's no writing. The next week, there's no writing. The next week, there's an exam. So that's kind of the pace, is we'll do like kind of an on and an off. Again, the writing is not long. My hope is it's not too onerous. It's probably about a page of writing. Again, it'll be in a forum, so it won't be like a Word document or anything. It's more just to give you space to think, give you space to reflect, think about what we've been doing in class, and then put it on the page. Then we'll have an exam that covers all the previous materials. Actually, it's a little more clear if we look at it in the syllabus. There are 3 parts, right? So here's part 1, religion and society, weeks 1 through 7, exam at the end. Part 2, 4 weeks long, exam at the end. Part 3, 4 weeks long, paper at the end. So two exams, paper, done. Okay? No problem, right? Very easy. Does it sound hard? You guys up for the task? No problem? Okay. All right, well, that's basically what I got for you. Any questions about the syllabus or the plans or anything like that? Again, here's the plan for next week. Smith, Alheim. Doing okay? All right. The final thing is we're going to read some books. So I brought some show and tell. We're going to read this book, the Ramayana. So this is an ancient Indian epic. As you can see, it's not too long, but also not the easiest book to read, right? So this is it's the reason I assign it for class, right? I think it's a little bit hard. Probably wouldn't read it in your own time, but if we read it together, I think we'll get a lot out of it. At least that's my goal. So please buy this book. Am I going to check if you bought it? No. If you get the e-book, that's also fine. I prefer a physical copy. Maybe you can tell when I read, I mark everything up. I take notes, I underline things, I star things. I've read this book probably like, I don't know, a dozen times because I've taught it many times and I read it every time and I always find new things. So it's all just to say, when I read, there's sort of a spatial component to it. You know, if I'm reading it on the page, I'm like, oh yeah, that part was kind of in the upper left corner or the lower right corner. It was on the left page or the right page. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Do you ever read things and kind of remember this way? I feel like when I'm scrolling, it just kind of gets lost in the mush. You ever get lost in the mush when you're scrolling? It's way too easy to get lost in the mush, right? It all just kind of mushes together. And then you're like, wait, where am I? What's happening? How long have I been staring at my phone? It's 3 hours later. How did that happen, right? So I find like there's more of a clarity with a physical book. It's also very cheap. I haven't looked at Amazon recently, but you can find a very cheap used edition of this. It was originally published in the 70s, so there are going to be a ton of these floating around. This one, a little bit thicker. We're not going to read this whole book, but as you can tell, this is a 400-page book. You ever read a 400-page book before? Well, now's your chance. College, everybody. This is where we read 400-page books. No, we're not going to read the whole thing. We're going to read probably like 2/3 of it, though. We're probably going to read, I don't know, more than 200 pages. Let's just say that. So these are the books I want you to get. We'll read this one first. We'll read this one last. We're going to read them in a different way. There are many different ways to read. We're going to read both of them. So I encourage you to get both books. If you have trouble doing that or you need help figuring it out, I can help you. You can get them at the bookstore if you want them immediately. You can order them online, and that's also fine. Try to get the Ramayana by, when do we start reading it? 2/25. So you got a whole month, right? So it's not urgent, but we, get them sooner than later, just so you don't forget. Okay, and that's really it this time. I have nothing else to talk about. Do you guys have any questions for me? Chat, you guys doing good in the chat? You've been quiet ever since we stopped talking about culture and stuff. No questions? All right, well, let's shut it down then. So it was nice talking to everybody. I'm going to turn the lights on. I use the lights to kind of transition between things to sort of set the mood. But yeah, if you, yeah, there it goes. Okay. If you have any questions over the weekend or you're confused by anything, email me. I check my email constantly, so I'm at your service. Otherwise, have a good weekend, and I'll see y'all Monday.
Bye. Thank you.
All right. Goodbye, everybody. I'm going to shut down.
Thank you.
the Zoom
Bye.
room.
Take care, Professor.
All right. Goodbye. Bye-bye.